Okay, so couple of technical difficulties on the first one, guys. So we are jumping live over here, and I'm going to share. So stand by just a second while I share this link to a couple of other places so they have the correct link to jump in on. 1 second. Go on and jump on in, guys, and you can go ahead and start asking any questions that you want to ask. And while I'm sharing this link to get everyone started. Hey, Marcus, how's it going? Hey, Rick, Colt, what's up? Okay, guys. So, all right. So yeah, guys, if you want to share this this link to this one, then this is going to be the live stream over here. There was a difficulty on the first one, which I expected because every single time I do anything live, then it's always got some kind of technical difficulty to it. So we're going to jump on in, and I'll start asking some of the questions. Hey, Abe, what's up with that shirt? The shirt is one of my favorite shirts. It's actually from Brandon McCaffrey. He has a lot of different really cool shirts, and this is one of my favorite ones, so I bought it from him. Let's see. Have I ever rolled with Tim Kennedy? No, I've not. I was gonna say I've not had the pleasure, but I don't think that would be very fun. I think it'd probably be pretty much a nightmare to roll with that guy, but it'd be awesome though, nonetheless. Colt, no, I'm not gay. It's just a rainbow unicorn on my shirt. I mean, come on. Let's see here. Should do more jiu-jitsu at home videos. Yeah, well, so Tyler, yeah, I plan to. I've gotten several of them out now, for home drills and stuff like that for quarantine shutdown times, and I've got some more that I have an idea for, but we're also going to see what the opening up process is going to look like before I start to do a lot more of those. From Argentina. Hey, from Argentina. Awesome. Let's see. What's up with that shirt? I already answered that. Learned tons from past videos. Thank you. I appreciate it, Greg. I appreciate that very much. Hey, Patrick. Hey, what's up, man? Yeah, you've got this shirt too. So yeah, Patrick from North South Jiu-Jitsu underwear. I'm actually wearing the underwear. It's weird for me to say I'm wearing your underwear, but he owns a company of North South Jiu-Jitsu underwear. That's why I'm wearing it. Let's see. Can you guys hear me okay? I need to check that to make sure. Give me a thumbs up if you can hear me all right. Let's see. I'll try to go through all these questions as best I can, guys, but there's quite a few of them popping in here. So let me try to read these as quickly as I can. Is it possible to fend off multiple attackers using techniques of this defense? I guess you mean using jiu-jitsu. Can you fight multiple attackers? As much as you can use any martial art. Multiple attackers. How well can you fight one person? Then multiply that and kind of almost exponentially multiply it. So that's going to be a lot harder. What is this class schedule like? The class schedule right now is non-existent. So yeah, we'll probably have to talk about that a little bit. I don't want to talk too much about the quarantine stuff, the COVID stuff, but it's difficult because we need to talk about what's going to happen with jiu-jitsu coming up, what the face of jiu-jitsu is going to look like for the near future and then for the extended future. So we'll get to that. Let me try to tackle a couple of easier questions for right now, though. The best way to attack the turtle guard position. Higher belts use it a lot against me. I want to differentiate turtle position and turtle guard. Turtle guard is slightly a different thing than just turtle position. To attack turtle position, there's lots of good attacks. And in fact, I've got videos on that on my channel, so you can look up some videos of how to attack it. But clock chokes, it depends too, gi or no gi. When somebody's turtled up on you, you need to look at how you can make the space to be able to take the back, either by pulling to take the back, getting the hooks involved, and establishing back mount on that person. So context kind of dictates that, whether you're talking gi, no gi, striking or no striking. So those all make a contextual difference. But I have some videos on attacking the turtle, so check those out. Let's see. Tomix, thank you. So Reyes in Brazil. So hello to, we've got some like international people on here, so this is awesome. So hello in Brazil, hello in Argentina. Realistic expectations should a 50-year-old white belt have when beginning BJJ? To really understand the value of energy conservation and defense. So just like anybody really, but especially for someone who's 50 and just now starting, I would say don't try to compete too much with the young, extremely athletic guys. Accept a lot of those bad positions and work your way out of them. It's going to build your defense. That's going to parlay into your offense later on. And if you listen to the top guys out there in the game, they're always talking about allowing themselves to get put into bad position, allowing yourself to get put into a bad position whenever they are training, because a lot of these guys that are top level guys will allow that to happen because if they didn't want to get there, they didn't have to. So if, think about that. So energy conservation and defense for 50-year-olds. My opinion of Greco-Roman wrestling for the clinch, I don't think there's much superior to the Greco-Roman wrestling for the clinch. It's some of the best thing that you can have. So, I mean, I'm a big proponent of wrestling of all types to be integrated with your jiu-jitsu because there's a lot of positions, there's a lot of energy exchanges, there's a lot of like takedown and stuff value. So yeah, I'm a huge fan of wrestling. I wish I were better at it. Wondering if body heavy kettlebells is a good way to improve jiu-jitsu conditioning. Yeah, I think kettlebells are great, man. I think that there's a lot of training with kettlebells that a lot of times people will say like you can supplement dumbbells or other devices for kettlebells, but there's really something about the if you read up on it, like get a book by like Pavel or someone that's really, or watch some of Steve Cotter's stuff and watch some of Steve Maxwell's stuff to get some really good functional workout ideas. Steve Maxwell particularly because he's a really high level black belt in jiu-jitsu and he's also one of the foremost authorities in the US on kettlebell training. 60s and I'm told to roll. Okay, I think you should roll at every belt level, every age, every experience level, everything. I think that's going to be good and beneficial to you. If you see me looking off once in a while, then I have to like throw some treats to my dog because he knows I have food right here. Let's see here. 60s, single leg takedown safer than the double leg. Maybe. I think that the safety of takedowns is a lot contingent. Now, there's going to be some that are just inherently more dangerous than others, but I think that that the single leg takedown is probably one of the highest percentage takedowns in grappling matches anyway. We're not talking about pulling guard and everything else like that. We're talking about actual takedowns. Gi or no gi, single leg tends to be the highest percentage. Now, I don't know what that says toward the safety or danger of it. But, I think that there's probably more injuries caused in training from takedown practice than there is through almost any other like position or submission. So there's the main thing is like, don't be clumsy with your takedowns. They take a lot more training and a lot of trusting partners too. Let's see. This thing keeps jumping around a little bit. So, yeah, there's some funny bots or trolls in here too. So let's see if I can delete those. I don't know. Should I report, remove? I'll just remove it. Okay. So when you're doing a leg lock, how do you prevent your opponent from doing a leg lock of his own? Understanding the leg entanglement and spending a lot of time there. Understanding what kind of leg entanglement it is, whether you're in 50-50, double outside, inside, ashi, whatever it is, understanding like where your knee line is in relation to their hips and how they're controlling it or how they're not controlling it. So when you see people that are really good at, you'll see people like Craig Jones and you see people like Gary Tone and Gordon Ryan, all those guys, Eddie Cummings, and you'll see them get put, another one is Gio, watch Gio Martinez. And you'll see when they get put into leg lock positions that a lot of people would just panic and probably tap right there, but they understand just like the subtle little nuances of that angle of the knee, and they know that they can escape their knee line, and so they're not in any real danger. Now, it doesn't mean they're taking the time, but they just understand it so inherently well that they're going to be able to escape it, and they know when they're in legit danger and not. So that's the big thing. And just spend a lot of time there and train very regimented, slow motion leg entanglements to really kind of identify that, and watch instructionals to kind of help you along with that too. These are some funny things. I'm not reading some of the funny things to me because they are inappropriate. Let's see. I see in your academy the Elio Gracie photo frame. Yes. Inside the academy where I train, Three Rivers Martial Arts Academy, we have a framed picture of Elio Gracie on the wall because we were through Gracie Jiu-Jitsu lineage. My rank, everything from beginning stages, I technically got my blue belt from Grandmaster Elio. Everything since then, every stripe, every belt has come directly from Hoist, though. Helping my coach at a local jiu-jitsu club as a high blue belt. Any tips from an instructional perspective? So you, I don't understand exactly whether you're the high blue belt or your coach is a high blue belt, but it sounds like you're the high blue belt. You're assisting your coach at your local gym. Tips from an instructional perspective as an assistant. So that's an interesting question. So not just instructional tips, but instructional tips as an assistant to the coach. Make sure you don't contradict the coach. Make sure that you're supportive of what he or she is saying, and make sure that like you're, let's see. Okay. I'm not trying to be rude by checking my phone, but they're letting me know if there's any kind of technical difficulty. So, be supportive of your coach, listen to what he's teaching, and don't get too caught up on this, because I notice a lot of times when I'm teaching and I have an assistant, this drives me a little crazy. I know they can't help it, but sometimes they forget that they're assisting, and instead of watching the other students, they're participating and watching as if they were a student in the class. And you're not a student when you're an assistant. You can still learn a lot from the coach that's teaching, but your job is there to be an assistant and to really fine tune those details in like synergy with what he's showing or she's showing. Man, Cam Girl Brittany, you are an interesting little robot. Let's see. Let me see. Okay. Steve Maxwell is a legend. Absolutely. That's where I am. So if you're looking at where I am in the comments coming up through here, back is an issue. It's once, let me see if I can block this real quick because she is getting super annoying. There we go. Okay. Is there value in getting a grappling dummy or a giant stuffed human-like to practice BJJ on given the circumstances and the ambiguous return of things to normal? Excellent question. Yes, there's definitely value in it. Now, I watched a video of Chewy's recently. He had an interesting take on it. He was kind of anti-grappling dummies, and he has good reasoning for why. But at the same time, if you really kind of like think about what the benefits are for having a grappling dummy, it's not going to replicate the energy that you're supposed to feel from that partner, but it's always going to be, it definitely is going to be better than nothing. Can you develop some bad habits from having a grappling dummy? Absolutely, for sure. But you can also get a lot of repetition, and especially on offense. Grappling dummies are good for building your offensive movement. Again, you're not going to encounter that live resistance that's so important in your refining your techniques, but you are going to you know, it's going to be better than nothing for sure. You know, you can practice a lot of knee on belly stuff is really good. There's a lot of articulated dummies right now. The Maddox from Fairtex, there's one that I'm going to get soon coming up. The BJJ 9000 looks like a really interesting one too. That's a higher price point, but yeah, man, or you can build your own. I built my own, and I'm going to put a video out on how I did it. I spent way too much time. The time invested was totally not worth it. The cost was actually, I could have almost bought my own by that time, but I wanted to do it just for an experiment. So yeah, absolutely. It's great. Kim Primola. Hey, what's up, man? You're a legend, sir. I was watching your videos back in 2007 when I first started my channel. So yeah, I absolutely love all your stuff. How do I feel about leg locks? I want to make sure I'm trying my best not to miss anything. Greetings from Belgium. Hey, what's up in Belgium? What's your take on combat jiu-jitsu? Are there gyms that train it in particular, or mostly BJJ or MMA guys do it for diversity sometimes? I am a big fan of combat jiu-jitsu. And I think that it serves a really interesting purpose not necessarily just a bridge between submission grappling and MMA. Because a lot of people will say that. They'll say, well, if you want to hit, then just do MMA. Well, there's some things, in my opinion, that combat jiu-jitsu offers that MMA doesn't. And it also has a little bit more controlled, and it puts the emphasis on the grappling aspect too. So I'm a big fan of it, and it lets people know what they can get away with and what they can't. It's really interesting if you watch the last one where is Tom Halpin. He won the last one, didn't throw a single strike the entire time. And his really cool interview on Rear Naked Radio. If you go give that a listen to that podcast anyway, because it's phenomenal. They just had Mac Lethal on there today. They've had some phenomenal guests. It's hosted by Drew Weatherhead and Jamie Kilstein, two of my good friends. Judo wrestling to beat a striker. Not sure if that's a question, but sure. Anybody can beat anybody. It breaks down to a matter of timing and your understanding of the proficiency of the art, and also how to apply that art against other arts. So techniques and disciplines and styles and everything, the saying is styles don't win fights. That's not necessarily true, because there are going to be styles and systems that are going to provide you a lot better platform for fighting different styles and system practitioners. That's going to be a very convoluted answer, but yeah, anybody can beat anybody, man. As a new blue belt BJJer, I would like to combine strikes, and I decided to start MMA training. Is that a bad decision? No, I don't think it's a bad decision to train in MMA, because you're still going to get high level jiu-jitsu. But if you're wanting, what do you want to do? Are you wanting to have like more realistic, not just sport competition, gi or no gi grappling? You're wanting to have an understanding of strikes and how to use your grappling in striking scenarios, then yeah, absolutely. You're going to get a lot of good training and a lot of good knowledge. The biggest thing for me is find somewhere where the coaches and the other training partners have your best intentions at heart. And it's a safe environment. Those are the biggest considerations, regardless of what you do. Thank you very much, Kelso Hayes or Reyes. Thank you very much for that, Jason Shoemaker. Hey, Eli, how do you feel about leg locks? Are you for them or against them? I love that there's a lot of leg locks up in here. I love leg locks. If I'm gonna go in and train what I want to train, like right now, probably whenever I get together with any friends that I train with right now for my own personal fun, and not something that I'm trying to work on to improve because it's a weakness in my game or something. If I want to train for fun, I'm doing leg lock stuff like all the time. And that's not saying that it's not practical and it's not functional. I mean, I have a very high opinion of the leg lock game on all fronts, but it's one of my favorite things too. So I absolutely love leg locks. What's your favorite Sunday? Oh, okay. When and how do you think BJJ Academy should open up during this pandemic? Thank you, Ken, because I knew that question was coming, and much respect that is coming from you. Guys, if you don't know who Ken Promola is, you've got to know who Ken Promola is. But if you don't, then you should, because he's an absolute legend. I've seen a lot of interesting things coming out. And it's going to obviously go state by state. For us here, I'm in Kentucky. And it's interesting because even just gyms, just workout facility gyms, are going to have deep restrictions. And it's probably not going to be likely that we're going to be opening even workout facilities for at least till June, probably mid-June. So then once they open and they do have strict like social distancing policies, I can't imagine them making people wear masks, because it just doesn't seem very practical when you're working out. Maintaining the 6-foot thing is probably going to be a thing involved in it. So there are things where martial arts academies can start to open up sooner. And I say martial arts because some of them are going to have an easier time than others. A karate academy and a kung fu and taekwondo, things where you can practice distance, away, and kata and whatever, even heavy bags and to some degree pad work, are going to be able to open way sooner to full functioning capacity than, say, jiu-jitsu schools are. Now, I have seen some interesting concepts as far as running kind of like solo drill classes where you'll have the leader of the class. Everyone will have their sanctioned out part. If it's a family member, then, you know, I've seen some things where it's like you can bring someone from your same household in to train as your training partner. You can bring in your own grappling dummy. Some places can have the ability to provide everyone with their own grappling dummy. So there are definitely things. There's going to have to be a smaller class numbers to begin with, most likely like 4 to 6 people per class. Private lessons, I think, will probably be able to resume, but man, a lot of it's going to boil down to restrictions and that the government, from the state level puts on your facility, your business. And now also it's going to depend too on people's apprehension, because even if we got the all clear tomorrow, there's still going to be so many people that are going to be apprehensive to step foot into an environment that has that close of contact. So this is something that business owners are really having a hard time with, that own jiu-jitsu academies and jiu-jitsu training gyms. So it's a very difficult thing. And it's something that there's some people that are really putting a lot of attention on it. And there's some people that are really, I was talking to Rafa Esparza earlier today. He runs Verbal Tap Podcast. He's got some brilliant ideas. He's doing an interview series with gym owners to get their opinions and takes on it. So I would recommend watching Verbal Tap Podcast for a great interview series. Keenan Cornelius has started a lot of really good initiatives to help with gym owners and looking for resources for them, not only about when they're concerned about opening their facility back up, but also about how to get some possible like small business help, because there's some people that are having a lot more trouble than others with that right now. And jiu-jitsu gyms are kind of left out in the cold. And I know a lot of people personally that have had to shut their gyms down probably indefinitely as far as this goes. And it's really heartbreaking. So I'm not going to get into that because I'll probably start crying. So let's move on. Would you do an MMA match? Not right now. No, I'm pretty old and busted up, and it would take for me, it would take an amount of training that I'm not currently able to do right now. Well, obviously, literally right now, but even when I have a regular schedule, I just can't. So that's my excuse. That's how I'm going to cop out of it. I've been training for 1.5 years. I train a lot, but I've really haven't really touched on any leg locks. In your opinion, when should people delve into that part of the game? I don't see any problem with training leg locks very early on. Again, it's like everything else. It's about your coach. It's about the competency of your coach and your training partners and the safety of the environment that you're in. If those things are all in place, you can train like whatever, in my opinion. It's, I do think you need to have a solid foundational understanding of the positions, the primary positions, transitioning and escaping between all of those, and just kind of how submissions work. For me personally, I like to prioritize passing the guard over learning leg locks, but that's not to say that you can't learn to some degree, concomitantly, like both of those games. Let's see, guys. Thank you guys, first of all, for all these questions and for watching this. I really appreciate it. And I would really like to do a lot more of these. So I really appreciate you jumping in with the questions. Let's see. More of a brute force, been a brawler all my life. I'm looking to expand my horizon. I'm trying to understand if getting involved in jiu-jitsu is a good decision. Jiu-jitsu is a good decision for anybody interested in learning how to fight better and to defend themselves, to whatever your goal in the world of violence and understanding violence is. It's important, I think, to learn about jiu-jitsu. It doesn't matter if you're big and strong or small and weak. Learning jiu-jitsu is going to be good for you. It's going to help people who are very dependent on their attributes learn how to maximize the use of those attributes efficiently, and to not overly rely on them too. So I think that's really good from that side of it. Any tips on how to engage the students more to keep them from losing their focus? You engage us so well through your videos. Thank you for that, Adrian. But yeah, I've seen a lot of initiatives since this whole thing has happened, and people have really been like busting their ass. I've seen, I'm good friends with I'm good friends with Ryan Hoover with Fit to Fight, and him and Amber have been really doing a lot, putting out a ton of workouts every single day. Put all their classes on Zoom for their currently enrolled students, and their students in exchange they seem to have pretty good retention during this. Now, obviously, some people are going to have to freeze accounts. Some people are going to have to take a hiatus depending on what their ability is. But I've said from the beginning of this, try to keep supporting your training facility if you're at all financially able to do that, because they're going through a hard time. And it's if people aren't there to help support through this to some degree, to some capacity, the likelihood diminishes day by day that they're going to be able to open back up once they have the all clear, whenever that may be. So yeah, be supportive if you're on that side. As for engaging, put out more content. I mean, it really boils down to something that simple. But make sure, like what I've been trying to do lately is I've been doing more Zoom classes and seminars. And what I'm trying to do when I'm doing those is some people will show up and they'll have like a training partner in their house, like whether it's a family member or friend or whatever. And some people will just have a bag. Some people have nothing. So I've been trying to show the applications for techniques and movements solo and with a partner, so that it's kind of fresh and they know how to make it more precise if they are doing a solo, to where it'll fit in with their partner training later. So that's been one of my things that I've been trying the most about. So I would suggest that. I'm just starting. Would it be important to just focus on one thing like bridging and shrimping for an extended period of time? I think it's there are certain things like bridging, shrimping, like fundamental ground movements that you can't drill too much. That they're always going to be good. They're always going to be useful, and you can't get too good at them. So just those fundamental ground movements are crucial all the time. So I would put those into a daily practice as much as you can. Let's see. My kid's wife and I are training at Rodrigo Vaghi Academy. Awesome. Rodrigo Vaghi is a legend. And my wife and I are white belts with no classes. I'm wanting to focus on my Gracie Combatives course. What are your thoughts? I'm a big fan of Gracie Combatives. I'm a big fan of Henner and Huron. And I think that they've done an amazing job with that course. And for Gracie University, period, I'm not one to be like, there's not a lot of people that I would talk negatively about, but I have nothing but praise for Henner and Huron and Gracie University. I think it's a great program. They put a lot of time into it, and their teaching is top notch. Is there a technical difference between a Kimura applied by a blue belt and a black belt? There shouldn't be, but mostly it's going to boil down to timing and setups, entries into and combos out of. So the question is a Kimura. Let's use any kind of arm lock, but we're using Kimura for this one. So the standard application of a Kimura, just from a mechanics level, shouldn't be any different from white, blue, purple, brown, black. But it's about the precision. It's about the landing. It's about the wasted movements along the way that should diminish by the time people get higher in the ranks. So there's several people that have really stood out to me at different periods of time in training, that I would watch them and they just moved so seamlessly. Like they would put something where it needed to be when it needed to be there. And there weren't little like baby steps getting it there, or any little like shaken moves. So that's really what, in my opinion, makes somebody a higher level, is the wasted movement diminishes. So let's see. What do you think of timed belts? They serve a purpose, mostly for kids, but time is a consideration. Time in has to be a consideration. Let me save that one for just a little bit, because I want to talk about ranking, because that's kind of where the conversation is going for some of these. So we're going to get to ranking in just a second, what I think about it. When I pull close guard on some people, they tend to use their elbows to open it up. Is there a way to counter that? Yes, there's a lot of ways to counter that. Developing like a well-timed open guard game is one thing that can really be helpful to whenever somebody is just trying to sit there and grind to open your legs. First of all, don't use your elbows to grind in somebody's legs to open their closed guard. It's a lame move, and most of the time people don't really have a great plan once they're doing that. And you can also, from that perspective of you doing that, you can get yourself in some trouble, because there's a lot of good ways to work arm drags off of that. There's a lot of good ways to work triangle and sweep setups off of it. I would have to show really in a video to really explain it. But yeah, there's a lot of good sweep opportunities from that. I'll just say that. When to build a solid self-defense foundation, not worry about tournaments. Okay, that was part of another question. Time belts. Just got my blue belt. Any tips on preventing the blue belt blues? Whew. Well, the blue belt blues, it's a real thing. And it's difficult because it's such a long journey. Blue belt feels like it takes forever. And you feel like your progress is so moderate and so minimal sometimes. And you really hit these peaks and valleys and plateaus. And it's all over the place. And especially with times like right now where you can't train regularly or you can't train the way that you would want to and need to, I think that like that's going to make it even harder, you know? So the biggest thing to me I would say is watch things to like re-energize you. Whenever I've gone through any plateaus, one of the biggest things that would always help me out of it is going to seminars, watching a different aspect of the game that I'm not really like used to doing, you know, and because for me, that would just kind of jumpstart my energy for it. Reading more things, you know, forcing yourself outside of your comfort zone is uncomfortable, obviously, is difficult, but you're almost always glad that you did it after the fact. So, you know, I would suggest doing that. Adrian, you're awesome. Thank you very much. I really appreciate Adrian Q. So I saw something up here. Where are we at? Follow up on the assistant coach question. Sometimes the coach isn't present, and I ended up leading those practices. Any tips for making females more comfortable in a beginner environment? Man, let me tiptoe around this question because I don't want to get too much into like the conversation of men and women and you know how females should train, because obviously I'm a dude. I do teach a women's self-defense class on the regular, so there are some things that I've had to be concerned about and really look closely at. I think it's up to the individual for a big part of it though, but you have to be really I think that you really need to be aware of that and really need to listen, and you need to have an open line of communication, and you know, not make anybody uncomfortable or put anyone on the spot whenever they're training, whether it's male or female. But I would be careful about throwing a brand new female across the board in with. You should know your male students, and there are going to be some male students who aren't going to recognize or respect, and sometimes just the opposite. That female student is female, that she may be smaller, that she may not be as strong or maybe not as aggressive. And so that's really something that should, let's see, that's really something that should stand out to you and you should really be on the lookout for. But, you know, if whenever possible, pay more attention to any student in class, whether it's male, female, or whatever, of someone that you think may have a difficult time because they're a beginner, because they are quiet, because they have some anxiety coming in. And, you know, don't necessarily put that person on the spot, but do show them the due attention to make them more comfortable. Colleen from Influx DC says, hi. Hey, tell her I said hi. Colleen's a good friend. What are your thoughts on rubber guard in self-defense scenario? I'm a huge fan of rubber guard. And I say all the time that I don't know why it's not more prevalent in MMA today, because when you do see rubber guard used in MMA, it's used sometimes very effectively. There's been some amazing rubber guard players in MMA, like Ben Saunders was a phenomenal. I think he's still like an active on the roster, but he used rubber guard excellently. And the thing is, though, I think that a lot of times when you see it start to be used, people aren't familiar, like super familiar with it, and they throw it up. And just because they grab their leg in a certain way that looks like rubber guard, and then the rubber guard gets trashed because it was trashed to begin with, because they didn't train it. They don't train it regularly. But you'll see the people who use it effectively use it very effectively. Now, I can equate it like that. The question was about rubber guard in a self-defense situation. I think it's fantastic for that, for a self-defense situation. You find yourself on the bottom, you know, which you shouldn't be. You should, you know, always be on top or standing or not in a fight, but whatever. If you find yourself on the bottom and you have to use some kind of guard system to diminish their ability to strike and also to allow you to set up potential submissions or escape opportunities or strikes of your own, then I think rubber guard fits checks a lot of those boxes. So I'm a big fan, and I have been for many years, about rubber guard. Combat jiu-jitsu would be awesome if it was in the gi. Yeah, I would like to see combat jiu-jitsu in the gi too. That would be really cool. Let's see. How do you know if you're getting into a reputable training school? That's difficult. This is a hard question. How do you know? So I'm wanting to start jiu-jitsu classes. I've never done jiu-jitsu before, and I want to find a good place to train. How do I even know? Because I don't have, how do I even know if it's a good place to train at? Because I don't have any foundation. I don't have any judging criteria, because it's my first time to step foot into a school. I think a conversation with the instructor, you're going to get a vibe. You're going to have intuition of the training place. And look up some questions. There's plenty of questions that you can have and you can formulate on your own. But, ask them about what their training schedule is like. What are their team goals? What are their student goals for the most part of that academy? Is it more sportive? Is it more competition based? Is it more MMA based? Is it more self-defense based? And do those line up with what you think you're wanting to go and learn? Now, I will say this, though. A lot of times people will go into a martial arts academy thinking, I want to start for this reason, and then sticking around for a wholly different reason. So that's fine. But just make sure that whenever you go into a place, you're comfortable with the instructor, you're comfortable with the environment, you don't get a weird vibe going in, and don't dismiss your intuition about those things. Can you, let's see. Have I ever trained judo? Yes, I've trained judo a lot over the years. At different times, more fervently than other times. I've hit the judo aspect. I have to be at different times too, depending on what my goals are. I would focus more on that. But I love the stand-up game. I love judo throws, and I wish I were better at it, just like wrestling. Hi there. Any advice to start teaching BJJ to kids 2 to 3 years old? Whew, that's very young. I don't personally like teaching 2 to 3 year olds or anything like 5 or under for the most part. And let me rephrase. It's not that I have anything against the kids. The kids are kids, and their training capacity and learning capacity is going to be one thing, and they shouldn't be held to the same criteria as adults. If you're going to teach kids that young, you have to make everything a game. You have to make everything fun, everything a game, and introduce a competitive spirit that's healthy for them, and reward and praise their behavior whenever they do something really well, and just don't get too curmudgeon and too frustrated with them, because it's very easy at that age. I love your videos. Thank you, Eric. On the topic of risky takedowns, why is it you rarely see the lateral drop in submission grappling? That's an interesting question. You don't see the lateral drop very much in submission grappling. Mostly because submission grapplers tend to be more on the submission side of things than wrestling. Wrestling in submission grappling, I think, is still just trying to catch up to this point. But we're also at a unique time in history too, where that wrestling aspect is really stronger than it has been in the past of a lot of jiu-jitsu competition. So I think as it progresses too, and I think as people get more of that training, you'll see more things like lateral drops and more sacrifice throws. I think that a big part of those big throws like that, hey Jeff, what's up, man? I think the reason that you don't see a lot of sacrifice throws is because they're just that, they're sacrifice throws, and if you screw them up, you're going to land yourself in a bad position. In submission grappling, you get the same amount of points for any takedown. So you can have the most beautiful throw that would be like a 5-point throw in wrestling, or something that would win you a judo match, and it's still only going to be 2 points. Or you could trip somebody, and as long as you maintain control, you're still going to get 2 points. So that's the big thing. It's the emphasis is not on the throws and takedowns. So there's not going to be that's kind of why the sacrifice throws get a backseat for a lot of the time. What got me into jiu-jitsu? Well, I started training jiu-jitsu with a man named Jason Hawkins, who I'm still great friends with and training partners to this day. And he was doing, it's easier just to call it Japanese jiu-jitsu, even though it kind of wasn't. It was more along the lines of had a Filipino influence to it, had some other things mixed into it. So I started doing jiu-jitsu with him. And during that process, it was early on, right around the time of the first UFC. And so we were doing jiu-jitsu, but then we saw Hoist go in there and do Gracie jiu-jitsu. And it was really an awakening experience for us. And we started to go and see hoists and train with different members of the Gracie family. And we all but just basically converted over to Gracie Jiu-Jitsu, which is probably another question that's going to be in here that I always get is what's the difference between Japanese and Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu? And I'll wait for that question to come up if it does, but I'm not going to introduce any questions right now that aren't in here. Can you forget Jiu-Jitsu? Like you stop training for a month or 6 months, etc. How much becomes muscle memory? How much does it change as your belt level increases? I think it's going to be like anything. I will say this though, and this is one of the things that I've always enjoyed about Jiu-Jitsu, is that the muscle memory is so quickly activated in Jiu-Jitsu because there's so much tactile response. If you're practicing something more striking based, there's a lot more, your body movement is going to remember and learn how to move correctly and everything, but there's not the same energetic exchange in a striking range as there is in a grappling range. So your partner is doing a lot to correct you too, and to remember that. So you will also retain that feeling and that sensation, that ability for longer, in my opinion too. And so, yeah, I mean, it's like anything. It's like, can you forget how to ride a bike? Can you forget how to do? I got on my skateboard because we've had some, extra time recently. So I got on my skateboard the other day, and I hadn't skateboarded in years. And I used to be able to do all kinds of tricks and moves and all kinds of cool stuff. And now I feel a little bit like wobbly. So yeah, there's going to be a point of diminishing returns and of disposable information. But it's harder to forget jiu-jitsu than it is a lot of other things, a lot of other activities, sports, and martial arts. Have you ever been to George Urgell MMA Academy in Cincinnati, Ohio? No, I've met George, and I have a ton of respect for George Urgell, a UFC veteran and phenomenal jiu-jitsu coach. I've actually competed against some of his students, against some of his black belts, and they're all just monsters. They're all just beasts. And I say that in a very endearing way, and he's an absolute beast. So I have a lot of respect. I've never gone and actually trained with him. I've met him, been around him in tournaments and stuff, but I've never trained with him though personally. Thank you, Jason. I appreciate that. Greg, I don't want to mess up your last name, Clelo, maybe, but thank you. I really super appreciate that. There's a couple of people who have thrown a couple donations into the super chat, and you guys are amazing. Thank you very much. I don't like to ask anybody or even mention about that, but it is an option over there that you can do that on the super chat, and you guys are amazing for doing that. So let's see. What belt? Can't forget jiu-jitsu. I want to make sure I'm trying not to leave anybody out of this. Let's see, Jason, there's a combo where you teach from having someone in Kimura from rib mount, and you drop to your shoulder and hit a leg scissor choke. Okay. And yeah, so you're like north-south mount. You're going for Kimura. You're kind of basically sitting on their head. Yeah. And so he's saying he's hit that leg scissor choke off of there. That leg scissor choke is underrated. It looks like a pro wrestling kind of move sometimes, but I've seen people hit that at high level. Nikki Sullivan, actually, she's got a string of victories with that leg scissor choke from that exact place, because she'll set up that. She's really good at getting in on that Kimura, but the person on the bottom is defending really well. And so she'll switch, like her timing on switching that leg scissor choke is on point. And she's a good one to watch for that transition in live competition. What do you believe for today judo? If you're asking like how I feel about it, then I love it. I love judo. I mean, I love watching judo competition. I think that judo, for the most part right now, is a very heavily rule-based art and sport more than anything, because you go into most judo places, they're going to be doing Olympic-style judo for that competition set of rules, which even with that rule set, as strict as some of the rule set can be, sometimes it's still a very effective in like all forms of combat. So I think judo is a phenomenal martial art. A couple of guys that I really like to watch a whole lot, and you should look at them on YouTube. It's Nick and Cy Collier, and they do the Collier method of judo. They worked with 8711 on the John Wick movies. So if you watch the last John Wick movie, they're actually in that as a couple of sambo players. But their judo is ridiculous, man. It's phenomenal, and you should check those guys out. So Nick and Cy. Just look up Nick and Cy and judo, and you'll come across them. One last question. Do you believe the better combatant is one of nature or nurture? That's a tricky question. Let's see, nature or nurture. So I guess we're talking about attributes versus techniques, right? And I think that both play a big part. So you can't discount nature. I don't know who said that. I remember that phrase. You can't discount nature. Bigger and stronger will always win whenever techniques are even, right? Bigger, stronger, faster is always better whenever the technical proficiency is the same. So yeah, but now here's how I feel about it. You can train attributes and you can train technique, and they're both great to train. They're both going to enhance each other potentially, but you get a higher return for investment on training technique. So in other words, like if you spend the same amount of time training for attribute and time for technical skill, your technical skill is going to have the higher return on investment. So you'll be able to beat people who are bigger and stronger than you are. And that's because of that, because the techniques are designed that way. That's why you train technique. If not, just go out and lift weights and get fit and do steroids, just whatever you have to do to get bigger, stronger, faster, if that's all you care about. But you're still going to lose to the more technical person if their attributes are enough to get them even close to you. So that's how I feel about that. Let's see here. What's your opinion of the best way to get out of the mount? My opinion about how to get out of the mount position, the best way is to understand how to connect your bridging escape with your shrimping escape. So that's very generic because there's a lot of little details in there, and watch my video on mount escapes. I've got a lot of them out right now. And you can also kind of see, even over the past several recent years, that there's some details that have changed a little bit in how I show them. And that's because if I find something better, I don't care like what level I'm going to be at. I'm not going to like bury my head in the sand and ignore that better way of doing something. So when I work with somebody who has a better way, I need to make sure it matches the litmus test, and I don't just like mistakenly think it's better, but I really want to test it out and really try it on and put some reps in it for a long time, and then see if it truly is better. And I think that's how everybody should do it. So my suggestion on how to get good at getting out of the mount position: first of all, don't get there. But secondly, get really good at understanding bridging and shrimping, because those are going to be your two fundamental movements to get you out, and how you combine those together is what's going to ultimately get you out. Spider guard, what do you think about it? I love spider guard. I'm good at it, but I started to think beside if they're wearing a sweater in a real fight. Oh, so spider guard in like a real fight? I don't know. I mean, probably not. Not especially not with the clothing. I think that it's kind of unrealistic. Watch the video that I did with Jamie Kilstein on pulling guard in a street fight, and that's not far off. Now, I don't think it's a good idea to pull guard in a street fight. Going to guard in a street fight out of necessity is a wholly different story. And if it happens, it happens. And if it needs to happen, because the guard is a very powerful position, doesn't mean you should go there immediately. And spider guard is a heavily sportive one. I love playing spider guard in a competition setting. And there are no-gi applications for spider guard to an extent. I just watched Tai Ruotolo versus Paulo Miao from last Abu Dhabi. I just watched that earlier today, again, because I'm fascinated with the Ruotolo twins, their leg pin passing system. It's fascinating. But I was watching that, and I was watching how Paulo Miao was playing a modified kind of spider guard, and even like some De La Hiva spider. And this was all no-gi. This is submission grappling no-gi. So there's application, but man, that's a heavily sportive thing. So honest take, what are your thoughts on long-term damage from training? I'm 40 plus, injuries are sticking around longer, and I want to avoid them at all costs. But it's hard to see coming. So here's something interesting. And I was listening to a podcast recently, and it just came out today because it was Mac Lethal on Rear Naked Radio. And he was talking about, Mac Lethal was talking about his wife was leaning over to pick up a plant at Home Depot and like blew out her ACL. And it was just a freak thing. And so accidents happen is what I'm getting at. Injuries happen, freak things can happen. Some of my like chronic injuries happen from some weird, crazy ways. I've got a lot of injuries from jiu-jitsu. But any sport that you do, any physical endeavor is going to come with its set of potential injuries. So all you can do is train as smart and as safely as you can, but stuff's going to happen. And you're 40 plus, I'm 40 plus. I'm not going to say how much plus, but injuries heal like a lot slower, or maybe not at all as you get older. You can take better care of yourself and you know, all of the nutrition, all the rest, all the you know, preventative measures. But as your body gets older, it just heals slower. It's just nature, man. It's just how it is. Okay. Dick moves. Yes. Yay or nay? Number one, driving the knee into the Achilles to break an annoying turtle. No, I don't think it's a dick move. Let's. What is a dick move? That's a tricky question sometimes. Now, if you're just looking to cause someone pain, it doesn't matter what it is. It's a dick move. If you're looking to elicit a response, it's questionable whether it's a dick move or not. We're talking about grinding the elbows into the thighs earlier. It could be, you know, it could possibly be a legitimate method of breaking a guard open. You know, this particular one, driving the knee into the Achilles to break an annoying turtle. So someone's in turtle position, they're balled up, and you're taking your knee and you're putting it on their Achilles tendon as they're balled up to like crunch down on it. Well, if you think about it, that's going to cause a certain rotation of the leg. And so that's going to open up pockets of space by that ankle and by that knee. So it depends on how you use that space and what your intention was. If your intention was just to crush that Achilles tendon, yeah, that's a big move. If you were trying to open up space, I don't think so. Step on the thigh to break spider and pass it. Absolutely. I think that's a fantastic way of passing the spider guard. I don't think that's a dick move at all. I think it would be hard to make it a dick move. It's similar, what he's describing is similar to what Keenan Cornelius calls a wrecking ball pass, a phenomenal pass, and I show that a whole lot. Driving the elbow into the ribs when attacking for a Kimura, chewy voice. Nice. Driving an elbow into the ribs when attacking a Kimura. Okay, this is another good one. So there's a lot of things. I think when jiu-jitsu is working well, it should put someone in a position where the current course of action that they're on is going to wind up hurting themselves. And they should be faced with the decision to stop that current course of action to prevent injury from themselves to varying degrees. That's in a fight and that's in training even. So yeah, if you're putting the elbow there, well, if they want that discomfort to go away, they can just release their defense against the Kimura. You know, it's that simple. So yeah, my opinion is varied on a lot of dig moves, but for the most part, I think it's the intention of the person for the most part. I'm 16. Whoa, we just jumped a whole bunch of these. Hold on. Okay. Tips for getting out of plateaus. I recently got out of one more by doing judo, but it was more by accident. Yeah. So that's what I was saying earlier. I think for plateaus, when you hit your training plateau, one sec. When you hit a training plateau, I think that a good thing to do is to explore things that are outside of the norm. Usually when we're training and we hit a plateau, it's because we're doing the same thing and we're getting the same results and we're not really like spiking. Also, training plateaus can be a misunderstanding a lot of the time because plateaus don't really exist if you think about it. It depends on who's progressing around you in proximity to you. What are your training partners doing? Sometimes when your training partners hit a good point and they're really spiking up in their abilities, it can make you feel as if you're moving back, but it's really just kind of like a parallax effect. Am I saying that right? Parallax? Yeah, it's that. It's you're actually just, you're seeing them skyrocket because it's a good point for them. Everybody has their peaks and valleys, and it makes you feel as if you're diminishing. But honestly, you're probably actually progressing, just not at the same rate. You know, so you kind of have to put things in perspective like that. As far as getting out of plateaus, look at a different part of the game. There's so much about training just jiu-jitsu. But I mean, even if your exposure to jiu-jitsu is not wide enough or whatever, you know, and you can't explore multiple facets of the game, or it's not conducive to that, then look at something else. Look at another element altogether. If you're a gi person, look at some more no gi application. Look at, you know, you're not a leg lock guy, look at leg locks. You know, force yourself to do it. And a lot of times it's going to make you do two things. It's going to make you learn a new element of the game that's going to re-energize you, or it's going to make you appreciate the element that you were already on. I think that's kind of what I think. Let's see. At what age did I start jiu-jitsu? I started jiu-jitsu when I was about, I think 16 years old. I think I was 16. It's hard to tell because I gradually shifted from Taekwondo over to jiu-jitsu, and I was training other martial arts at the time. So I was around 16. So it's been a long time. 5 is a good age. Tips for training plateaus. I feel like my teacher doesn't try to talk to me at all. All he says is hi, and do you have any questions? Does he speak English, Jason? So that might be part of it. But in seriousness, though, ask questions, you know, and if he's asking you that, he probably genuinely wants to know your questions. Come up with good questions, and that'll open a line of dialogue, and it'll open a line of communication between you and him. So if you're wanting, you know, because it's difficult as a teacher sometimes. A lot of times you don't want to make too many assumptions, and you don't want to make not enough assumptions for your students. So, you know, and you don't always have the best answer of how to open up a clear line of communication, and you have a lot of students to have to like spread your attention around. So the squeaky wheel gets the grease sometimes. So I would say come up with some questions for him and see how he responds to it. You know, Spice Guard, no good. Spice Guard, I think that means Spider Guard. Is it good in a real fight or no? I would like, if I had to say yes or no, I'd say no, but anything has some application. It's just maybe not the best strategic thing or tactical thing. What do you think about Gracie Combatives? I mentioned that earlier, but I think Gracie Combatives is a phenomenal program, and Gracie University as a whole is phenomenal, and Henner and Huron are great people. I can't say enough good things about them. Can you suggest a safer alternative to the lateral drop for submission grappling when the enemy is pressuring directly into you and the over-under position? The lateral drop is great. I mean, that's specifically like where you would throw that lateral drop in there, but you can also fit an Ippon Seoinage in that exact same energy. So the over-under position, they're pressuring into you. That's exactly when a fireman's carry would be great. Ippon Seoinage would be great. Lateral drop would be great. All those, I think, would fit really well. Do you still work with Ryan Hoover and Gianna, others in the group there? I do a lot of work with Ryan. I'm still very involved with Fit to Fight, with the Fit to Fight Republic, and I am good friends with Ryan. We do a lot of stuff collaboratively, and I'm not with Aperture any longer. I'm not with like any division of all that. I'm just kind of creative differences. We've gone separate ways. Lots to that story, but short answer, no, I'm not with Aperture any longer. Do you think about the trend of fighters staying in half guard to ground and pound compared to working on submissions from side control? Totally skip over my question. It was right under, how do you feel about you? Okay. What was your question? How do I feel? Yes. Trying not to skip questions, guys, but this is a hectic thing. How do you feel? Oh, how do you organize effectively techniques since we are taught a new one every class? The instructor should do a lot of that for you, in my opinion, but it's difficult sometimes to juggle curriculum and with the student base that you have. So how do you effectively organize your technique? Take notes, and take notes either just handwritten in a journal or type them into your phone. For me, I tell people in my classes, I don't mind if people record my classes. If it's a private lesson or a group class, me personally, I'm fine with anybody recording anything. I ask them to get my permission before they post it publicly, but you know, that to me is one of the best ways. And then you can take it and you can compartmentalize that. You can set yourself up folders of, okay, this is guard stuff, this is turtle stuff, this is side control top, side control bottom. So yeah, jiu-jitsu, in my opinion, is really easier than a lot of things to do that with, because the positional hierarchy gives you a framework already to where you can kind of like compartmentalize that really well. Let's see. Tips for getting over plateaus. Let me try to get back to where I was here real quick. I went back. I feel like my teacher doesn't talk to you. Okay. Run, push-ups, sit-ups, cardio will get you in shape. Spider guard, we answered that. What do you think about Gracie Combatives? We answered that. Still work with Ryan. What do you think about the trend of fighters staying in half guard and ground and pound compared to working for submissions? So you'll see it a lot of times in MMA that the top player will actually get to half guard and sit in that half guard top, or like maintain that half guard top for ground and pound. And Randy Couture was really a big pioneer of that. And if you watch how he really effectively used that, and Mark Coleman, you can see a lot of that too, but Randy, I think, was the most deliberate and technical about it. He would get to that top half guard position and do a lot of damage from there. I personally prefer to see people like use striking to set up advancements in the grappling aspect and ultimately look for a submission. But that's just because I'm a jiu-jitsu snob. But I think what's going to win you the fight. That's a great position to land ground and pound from. So, more power to them. Have you competed much? What are your thoughts on competition? I wouldn't say I've competed much compared to a lot of people. I mean, there's I'm sure blue belts out there with like more competitions racked up in their like 2 or 3 years of blue belt than I probably had my entire like career. But over the years, I've been doing this, and I did my first competition when I was like a blue belt back in '99, I think. I did the Gracie Nationals one time when I was a blue belt. I never competed at purple belt. I started competing back again at brown and did several competitions, and honestly competed at black belt more than any other belt. So I had kind of a weird competition thing, but I think competition is great. As long as you understand it is what it is and what it's doing for you, and how it's helping you toward your goals or whatever. So I think competition, it's definitely good. We like to answer about attributes and technique. What about less experience and a lot of exercise? What about less experience and a lot of exercise? I think, okay, so going back to the thing about attribute and technique, if you don't have the ability to train more technique time than you do exercise time, then do more exercise. Maximize your training however you possibly can. In my opinion, if you have 2 hours a week to train anything, and you have the ability to train 2 hours of jiu-jitsu or 2 hours of going to the gym, and you had to pick for some weird reason, then do the 2 hours of jiu-jitsu. And it also depends on what your goals are. So I think that, though, what I was saying about technique having the bigger payoff, the higher return on investment, then I think that's where I would say. Mr. Knight, do you think jiu-jitsu will be the same after this pandemic is over? I've been trying to find the most positive way I can say this, but to be honest, no, I don't see jiu-jitsu being the same for a while. You are going to have the very determined people who are like really all in prior to this. Even some of them, though, I think are going to be paranoid to get back on the mats. And, it's understandable. There's a lot of uncertainty. There's a lot of fear. There's a lot of craziness right now. So I think if we magically just got the all clear tomorrow, and they said, you know what, you can resume everything the same way it was, there's still going to be people apprehensive of getting back in there. So of stepping back onto the mat and touching hands with somebody and sweating and exchanging all that and being that close of proximity, breathing in somebody's face. People are going to be paranoid for a while about that. So yeah, jiu-jitsu is not going to look the same for a while to come. There's been some irreparable damage done to the complexion of the entire country. So I mean, I don't want to get too political about this whole thing or whatever, but that's my opinion about what it's done to jiu-jitsu, though. But try to be as supportive as you can and as patient as you can, guys, because jiu-jitsu will eventually get back, and maybe even sooner than we think. So I would say be patient. Have open lines of communication. Talk to your gym owners, talk to your instructors, and keep an open dialogue. And make sure you're comfortable through the whole thing, and that they're comfortable, and help however you can. Do you have advice on keeping your hips low when you're in side control, half guard, mounted position? I tend to create a little bit of space when the person starts to make a move to escape. Okay, so keeping your hips low when you're in a top dominant position. What's that accomplishing? Okay, so let's reframe the question. What does it accomplish to keep your hips low and heavy, let's say, in a top dominant position like side control or mount or scarf or whatever? What you're doing ultimately is you're effectively filling space, and you're filling that space with like really well situated weight distribution. So if something happens to corrupt the position where you can't fill it and you can't keep your hips that low, fill that space with something else useful. So a good thing that I like to tell people, and this is something that really occurred to me years back, and I've really kind of ran with it and really meditated on it almost. But it's like when space gets created either through my doing or my opponent's doing, I need to fill that space. And typically I need to fill it with a hinge joint. So like, let's take the example of I'm on top side control and my partner is underneath, or my opponent is underneath me. They shrimp away. if I stick my knee in the space that was created, all of a sudden I'm transitioning to knee on belly and possibly to mount, so I'm upgrading. If they stick their knee from the bottom into that position, they're reapplying their guard position. So now they're upgrading. So a lot of the times it comes down to something as simple as whenever space is created between the hips of the two different people, fill that space first and fill it with a hinge joint like an elbow or a knee, because that expands and contracts, and it's really a good way to manage that space. I hope that answered the question somewhat. I always lose a smaller dude when I spar in BJJ. Why? So one, why do you lose to the smaller guy when you're sparring in jiu-jitsu? It could be several different things, right? Sometimes smaller people fit into spaces. So let's parlay it off the question I just answered about the filling space. Smaller people tend to be quicker a lot of the time. And since they're smaller, they can fit into spaces and fill those spaces first. So really a lot of it is, it's not always just about the size of the person or the strength of the person. It's about their ability to fill spaces and create frames and create wedges and manage those spaces. If Thor Bjornsson, aka the Mountain, yeah, he just set another world record, I think, for like an 1,100-pound deadlift or something. No prior BJJ or grappling experience, were to say grapple competitively with Buchecha. What do you think the outcome would be? First of all, Buchecha is not small. he's not a little dude. Now, obviously, the Mountain is like the 0.00001% physical like strength specimen in the entire world. So that guy is going to be impervious to a lot of stuff, but he can still be choked. He can still be arm locked. It'll be really hard. But you get somebody who's extremely big, strong, and athletic like Buchecha, and he has that level of technique. I would put my money on Buchecha because for two reasons. One, if they're just like grappling competition, well, what's the Mountain going to do? Like, he doesn't know any submissions. He can like sit there and try to crush him. I don't know, man. This is going to get a little nerdy, like to continue on this talk. But my money would be on Buchecha and something like that. Let's see. Like hip throw. Can you talk about the variance from armbar, seat to reverse triangle, etc.? Others. I will try. I'm not sure exactly. If you can give me, that's going to be kind of tricky to talk about because we really need some kind of like visual illustration of that. I'll try to come back to that though. Don't let me forget 77RGR77. Adrian, looks like it was a similar way of thinking. Thank you for your responses, and please hydrate more. Yeah, sorry. I keep opening this and holding it out, but then I start talking again, and I need to drink more. So let's see. Yes, me out. Saw that one. Oh, spider garb. What are some things that are non-BJJ or dietary related to everyday that you would say helps as a combat athlete, BJJ competitor or practitioner? So what are some non-BJJ or dietary? Okay. So I think there's several things. Rest and recovery is huge. I'm saying this. I'm not saying I'm going to be good at any of these things or perfect at by any stretch of the imagination of these things, but I have learned a lot over the years, and I know what keeps people in optimal condition for the most part. Now, I will say on a diet front, diets are a lot more subjective than people I think give them credit for. Sometimes whenever somebody over here says this is the diet everybody needs to follow, well, people are very different. And so you need to understand your body, your nutritional needs, your nutritional where you perform optimally under. Resting and recovering is huge. Getting like sufficient quality rest and allowing your body to recuperate is one of the most overlooked things in my opinion. And I say that because I am very guilty of that too. Now, as far as nutrition, people don't drink enough water for the most part. A lot of people do, but I mean, a lot of people stay dehydrated. So drinking a lot of water, staying optimally hydrated. Nutrition, there's a lot of crap supplements out there, but there's a lot of good ones too. And there's a lot of, again, these are they're very subjective though, so really working with somebody, talk to a nutritionist, talk to like a trainer or somebody that really works a lot more in nutrition and dietetics to really help formulate your own personal thing. Because, everybody's different, man. Let's see. You need to do a video with more wrist takedowns. Yeah. Wrist takedowns are hard, man. That's like that small circle jiu-jitsu stuff, but it's definitely wrist locks. Standing in on the ground are scary sometimes. I've seen some scary ones in competition from standing. The guy couldn't even like tap fast enough. So yeah, it's wrist locks can be very dangerous and scary, but very effective like anything else. I broke my finger about 8 weeks ago on the middle finger, middle knuckle. Any suggestion about taping it, how to tape it? And also talk about some of your hand injuries you've had. Yeah, I've still got a really messed up wrist on this side, and I've got a really messed up, like, you can see that knuckle right there, how it's really messed up. I broke this bone, I busted this knuckle, and I tore a tendon in that knuckle. And this wrist over here, this is my complete range of motion to that. So I can't like do push-ups any longer. But so yeah, I've had some messed up hand injuries and wrist injuries. Fingers are easier. Fingers are a lot easier to take care of than wrists and knuckles because those have to be a lot more isolated and restricted. But fingers, you can buddy tape and really cross hatching on the tape a lot of the time to protect the joints themselves, and then buddy taping. Those two things right there are some of the most helpful, and they're very basic, but they're you know, kind of time tested. So buddy taping is a big one. I know you have a lot of content. I'm new to the channel. Do you have a series playlist that is systematic for white belts building a foundation? You know, I don't have an actual playlist for that, and that's a good idea. So thanks, Larry. I'll try to put together a playlist specific for people that are beginners, like you know, just like your foundational movements. But you'll see on my channel, though, I've got a lot of like the first 5 that you should know from here, and I try to do that specifically geared toward like white and early blue belts, so that they can prioritize and kind of front load the information that I think is going to help build them a strong foundation before they start to, like, you know, experiment too much into you know, other realms and get off on the crazy stuff too much. Now, buddy, get down. Let's see. Thank you, Raj TV. Appreciate it, man. Thank you. Let's see. Who gives you the hardest roll in practice in your gym? Give him Nick Diaz, shout out, homie. Explain why he's the hardest roll. Well, it varies. It varies. I've got you know, varied training partners. My closest training partner probably is my buddy Alan, and we train the most together. And so because he trains the most with me, he knows like what I'm gonna do most of the time. He understands my game probably more intimately than like a lot of other people that I roll against. And so he definitely gives me the hardest time, but we give each other a very hard time because we know what we're both going for, and we play similar games by this point, even though he has his certain things and I have my certain things. But yeah, I think that the person who gives you the hardest time in the gym, it should be the person who understands your game the most, and probably too that you're going to understand their game pretty well too. But yeah, that'd be my buddy Alan for sure. How do you see a low level beating a high level competitor? Is that possible? It's absolutely possible. It happens all the time. Not low level. I'd be careful using that term of what low level means, but a less experienced person can absolutely beat a more experienced person, because more experienced people can take people for granted. They can leave things open. They can make mistakes. And Pedro Sauer had a really good take on this. There's a video of him somewhere talking about this exact thing, about how a blue belt can beat a black belt. And a lot of times it's because more advanced players, once they get into a position, they might make an assumption that, well, this person wouldn't fall for this. I'm not gonna get away with going for this technique because it's too basic or too simple. Whereas, you know, the less experienced person, all they have is that, and they may just jump right on it and stick to it. And you know, so it's easy for a more experienced person to take that for granted and to like miscalculate and then get caught by that lower level person. So it's 100% possible. It happens all the time for sure. How do you improve rolling with somebody younger and stronger? My coach tells me to roll smarter and trick my opponent, but doesn't give examples or show me how to roll against someone like this. Okay, so if you're rolling against somebody who is younger and stronger, then you know, it's not necessarily wrong to try to play the attribute game with that person, but you're going to have your work cut out for you. And it's really easy to get drawn into that game too. It's really, sometimes it's difficult to avoid going into a role or into a match and feeling what that person's coming at you aggressively, and then want to respond back in equal measure with that same amount of aggression physically or whatever. But just realize that you're going to have to rely on precision and timing and technique a little bit more. You're probably going to wind yourself up in bad positions. And I think a big thing about it is not to panic and blow out your resources when you're in those bad positions. You know, be a little bit more comfortable when you're forced into those bad positions, and conserve your energy and let them burn some of their energy out. I mean, ultimately, that's what's going to win you those matches. So just be careful about your energy output. You can have a bigger gas tank, but if you blow out your gas tank, it didn't matter that it was bigger than theirs. Let's see. Is judo as hard as BJJ for fingers or worse? I haven't like trained hardcore judo as long as I've trained jiu-jitsu, and any kind of finger stuff that I've gi wise, any kind of finger injuries that I've had have been from playing collar sleeve kind of controls, spider guard kind of stuff. So that it can be pretty brutal, and you see some gnarly fingers from a lot of like heavy spider guard players. But then if you look at some judo players too, like they're constantly getting their grips ripped away, and they're doing it off of like dynamic gripping and grabbing. So it's a little bit more almost ballistic for them. I don't know, man. I would say probably the judo people have a little harder way to go, but I think you'll find a lot of BJJ players that have some gnarled up fingers that would be a good argument against that. Will this be uploaded onto the channel later? Yeah, I'm going to put this video that we're doing right now. I'm going to upload it after this is over with, as long as I don't screw up and delete it somehow. So yeah. Also, do you have thoughts on the reverse Kimura series? The reverse Kimura series is a fantastic series. And Drew Weatherhead, who runs Because Jitsu on Instagram, the biggest BJJ meme page on Instagram, and he's a hilarious but brilliant and high-level black belt. He's a really good dude, and his reverse Kimura series, he's taken a really scientific approach to it, and I can't say enough good stuff about that series. I actually I talked to him a lot about it, and you know, I've gotten his thoughts on a lot of it, and I actually attended one of his seminars where he was teaching it when he was in the States. So yeah, you should go out and get that series, man. The reverse Kimura, it's got some great stuff. I've been doing Muay Thai for a year already, and I want to learn Jiu-Jitsu. Is if best to learn two martial arts? I think with something, so this is a question I get a lot, is about is it good or bad to learn these two things simultaneously, to train these two different martial arts simultaneously? And the answer can be yes or no, because there are going to be things that are going to be a little contradictory and energetically whenever you're training them, but there are going to be some good martial arts that are going to be good complements to train simultaneously. And I think that Muay Thai and Jiu-Jitsu are pretty good complements, because there's enough differentiation between the modalities of them that they're not going to like contradict each other, but they're going to help to really round each other out. I've done Muay Thai for a long time, almost as long as I've done Jiu-Jitsu, and it's one of my favorite martial arts, and I think it's a huge complement to your Jiu-Jitsu game. Let's see. Also, you have mat space at your house. Do you have mat space at your house, and would you recommend it? Yeah, I would absolutely. Let's see. Hello world. The shirt. Last time on the shirt, this right here. It's one that Brandon McCaffrey came out with. He's a 10th Planet black belt down in Alabama, and he has some hilarious shirts that he's come up with, and this is one of them, and I love it. Do you have mat space at your house, and would you recommend it? I would definitely recommend, if you have space that's not too intrusive to the rest of the family or whatever, that you can put mats down in your house. I highly recommend it, because if you're doing any kind of training at home, then you want to have a matted surface and not get carpet burn or not have to do it on hardwood or concrete. So yeah, get some little cheap like puzzle piece mats from Lowe's or Home Depot or Walmart, or if you can get some better ones, get some Dollar or rollout mats, and yeah, train, man. Just drill whatever you can right now. Let's see. All right, man. I think I knocked out a big portion of these questions, guys, and we've been on here for over an hour right now, and I'm going to put this video up after this live recording, after it processes and uploads. So I'll put it up there, and I hope that you guys got something out of this. And feel free to come back and refer back to it if you think I missed anything, or if you didn't get the first portion of it after it gets uploaded. And I really appreciate you guys watching all the time and all the support. You guys are always amazing. Getting on my, leaving comments on my videos, let me know that you're watching them, sharing them, subscribing to the channel obviously is fantastic. My girlfriend's going to be mad at me if I don't do this, so I have to mention the things that I have, like, besides my YouTube channel. Here we go. Patreon.com/nightjujitsu is where I upload like videos of my actual classes that I teach and some other like exclusive content kind of stuff. I also have three different BJJ Fanatics instructionals. One is called Jiu-Jitsu based self-defense solutions, position transition submission. And one is called Gi to Street, which is a horrible name, but I didn't have a good name to come up with it. It's all gi chokes applied to street clothes. And then the thing I'm most proud of out there is the Jiu-Jitsu deep dive I did with the Budo brothers. And if you haven't checked that out, guys, check it out. It's honestly, it's really cheap for the amount of work that they put in it and the amount of work I put in it. It's a ton of content, and it's a lot of good information. I think from beginner to advanced, it's a lot of good stuff. What else? What else is it? Yeah, I don't know. Just keep watching, guys. I appreciate you. Follow me on Instagram and stuff too at Night Jiu-Jitsu. And yeah, keep in touch, guys. Send me messages anytime. I love it. And I'll try to do more of these. Thank you all for watching.